What is your problem? If I had to change my life all over again, this is where I'd start. In my experience, most self-help videos on the internet, most coaches, most therapists launch straight into giving you advice about what to do if you want to change your life without establishing two very important things first. So the whole point of this episode and the next one are to establish two crucial points. If you want to change your life, which I assume you do if you are here, there are two things you need to know. You need to know where you want to go, but more importantly, you need to know where you are right now, and that's something that most people just completely overlook. So in this episode, I'm going to dive into showing you how you can figure out exactly where you are right now and exactly what problems you are facing. If you don't know who I am, I'm Paul Cope. I transformed my own life after finding myself depressed, miserable, with loads of issues, stuck and trapped in a life and in a career that I hated, and I completely transformed it all 5 years ago, and I've been on a journey ever since, and I've been helping people all around the world since then through coaching and books and online courses, and now I want to help you do the same thing. Thank you for joining me in my new den, in my new lair. This is my home YouTube studio that I've built. I'm not convinced about it. Let me know in the comments what you think. I've already had someone tell me it looks like Dragon's Den, which is a niche comment for people in the UK. I feel like I'm in a bit of a lair. Is that what it feels like? Is that the feel you get? Tell me what you think. We'll experiment with this over time. This is part of my ongoing point that we're not perfect and we're trying to just make things the best we can as we go along, and we can change as we go and develop. That's all part of this work and all part of life. So let's launch straight in. The key to all of this stuff is complete honesty. Honesty with ourselves. It doesn't matter about anybody else. We just need to be honest with ourselves. In other episodes, we'll dive into the root causes of all the shit that we find in our lives that cause all the problems we're facing. But for now, it's enough to summarise that since we were little kids, we've been taught subconsciously to feel ashamed of parts of ourselves, feel ashamed of how we feel, and that's why we suppress loads of things. That's why we're not honest with ourselves. That's why, even though deep down we might know the answers to something, we push it away and we don't want to admit it. A big part of this section of the work is to admit to ourselves for the first time what's really going on, and I'm going to help you to do that, because it's the things we can't see, the things that aren't in our conscious mind, that undermine everything else in our lives. They drive us from the shadows, they drive all of our problems. So the biggest part of this is to bring those things into our conscious mind and to see them for the first time. So let me give you a little story from my old life that sums this up perfectly. I was in a relationship for about 12 years, married for 6 of those, and something that used to drive me mad throughout the relationship was how untidy my partner was. In my mind, I was the tidy one, she was the untidy one. In every relationship I see, there is a tidy person and an untidy person, so the story goes. I used to come into our beautiful city centre apartment every day, and it would be a big open plan space. There was a table in the middle of the open plan area, and that table would always, in my mind, be covered in shit. My partner would come in, she'd open her post, she'd just leave it all there. It was like the collection point for everything. Whenever she wanted to put something down, she would leave it there. I used to ask her repeatedly, please keep this table tidy, because in my mind, when there was mess, I felt uncomfortable. I didn't feel like I was at home. So I just wanted her to keep that table tidy, because it was the first thing I saw when I walked into our home at the end of a busy day. I was stressed, I was working long hours. I just wanted this table to be kept tidy. She would tell me she would do it, and then she wouldn't. So we would argue about this on loop for years. And it wasn't until I started doing this work that I realised what the real problem was behind this. On the surface level, and this is the thing we want to get behind, on the surface level in our lives, there are all these problems, all these symptoms, and we think it's about being tidy. But that argument, that problem in my life wasn't about whether or not my wife was tidy or not. The problem was, every time I asked her to keep the table tidy and she said she would and then didn't, I felt like she didn't love me. There's a long story to go down deep into that, which we'll get into over time, and I'll show you how that adds up. But fundamentally, that's what these things come down to. it was like she was betraying me. That sounds like a big deal, but at a very deep level, that's what's happening. She's lying to me. She's telling me she's going to do something, and then she isn't. And that has a knock-on effect, because then I feel unhappy in the relationship. And it's not just the fact that the table isn't tidy, it's the fact that I'm asking her to do something, she's agreeing to do it, and then she's not doing it. So there's all kinds of different factors in there that fundamentally come down to the feeling that I don't feel loved and I don't feel good enough. Again, we're going to come to that more of that in future episodes. So I actually want to help you to do the same thing now. I want you to find out exactly what the problems are you're facing in your life, because we will never change until, in very basic terms, the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing. Where humans love certainty and control, it's a big part of this work. And the reason we often find we stay stuck in situations we don't like, so if you're experiencing problems, one of the reasons you're staying stuck is because the pain of change is too big. You want to change your life, but that pain is too high, and actually the pain that you're in is not great enough. And it's not until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change that you will change, because then changing becomes easier than staying as you are. This is a pattern I see so many people go through. Even people who come to me and might think they want coaching, at first they're just not experiencing enough pain, and they may be in a lot of pain, but it's just in their system. The fear of change is so great that that's way more painful than just staying stuck where they are. So one of the ways we can overcome that is to really look at how much pain we're in, how many problems we're facing, how many challenges, and ask ourselves, do we really want to carry on doing this? How long are we going to carry on doing it for? So what I want you to do is grab a pen and a piece of paper. Do this with a pen and paper if you can. You can do it on your phone, or you can do it on a laptop or on a computer, but it's just not as powerful as writing it down old school with a pen and paper. It accesses a different part of your brain, it allows you to let more stuff out. So do that if you can. And what I want you to do is write down a list of all of the things that are wrong in your life, big and small, all of the problems you face, all of the challenges, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, minute by minute. Go into as much detail as you can. Be completely honest and don't leave anything out. Then think about my tidy table example. And once you've written your first list, go back through it and ask yourself, what's really the problem here? So whatever it is you face, it may be that you drink too much alcohol. Maybe you drink too much. That was something in my old life. I used to drink too much. I used to go out and drink a lot. So on the surface, the problem is drinking too much alcohol. But when I stopped and looked at it and said, okay, why do I drink so much? When I go out on a night out and I say I'm going to be home at 10 o'clock, why do I not come home at 10? Why do I stay out till 7 o'clock in the morning? Which was a common occurrence back in my whole life. And when I sat and did this exercise, what I realised was it was because I was unhappy at home. The problem on the surface level, the symptom looked like it was I drank too much. But the reality was, the real problem was I was unhappy at home. And once you write, I'm unhappy at home, you can then dig into, I'm unhappy at home. Why am I unhappy at home? What can we do? What can we look at there? What details can we see? And this is the idea. We want to get as deep as we can. So everything you write down, ask why. What is underneath it? Is there something deeper than that? And you'll get to a point where you need to stop. That's great. Only go as far as you can. And that'll give you a picture of all of the issues in your life. Then I want you to reflect on everything you've written down and reflect on how much pain and how many problems this is causing you in your life. How much suffering are you experiencing because of all of these things you've written? And how long are you prepared to carry on living the way you're living right now? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Picture yourself on your deathbed. This is a really powerful and poignant exercise. There's loads of stories about people who work in palliative care with people at end of life, and they ask people, what do you regret most about your life? And they often say things like, I regret the things I didn't do more than the things I did. So I regret not making the changes. I regret not living the life I really wanted to live. I regret living a life that other people wanted me to live instead of the one I wanted. So think about that. Think about you on your deathbed. Think about that person. What would they be saying to you now? How long are you prepared to stay stuck where you are? Really sit and think about it and reflect on it and sink into it. Now, something that often comes up when I ask people to do this as an exercise in coaching is they're worried that someone they love, or more than one person they love, will see what they've written if they're truly honest. And remember, if we're not truly honest, this defeats the object. I've seen so many times over the last few years when I've coached people, that they'll come back to me with what they think are the real things. And as they talk it through and we dig into it, I'm like, that doesn't sound like it's the real thing. It sounds like it's a watered down version. And when we dig in, what we get to is they were worried that someone would see it, their husband or wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, kids. They were worried someone would see what they'd written and that would hurt their feelings. So a really good trick to make sure that you're going to be completely honest with yourself as you write this is to write it on loose paper. It's a good reason not to put it in a phone or anywhere electronic. Write it on loose paper with the knowledge that when you've finished, you're going to set fire to the paper, because we don't need to keep hold of this. We don't need to risk other people seeing it. The whole point is to be honest with ourselves and to bring things into our conscious mind. So write it on a piece of paper, and then when you've finished, take it outside and set it on fire. Now, this is really important. I don't want to get loads of messages saying people have burnt their house down by setting fire to paper inside the house. So I'm going to put in a disclaimer here. Make sure when you set fire to the paper, you do it safely. Go outside, go somewhere where you can't cause damage. A huge part of this work is taking responsibility. So if you burn your house down, don't blame me. And if once you've done that exercise, you figure out the big things that you want help with, put in the comments. Let me know what you are struggling with, what you want specific help with, because that will help me make content that is specific for you and helps you overcome the problems in your life. Once you've done all of that, the next step after figuring out where you are is to figure out where you want to go. And that is a $64 million question for most people. When I say to people, what do you want? They say, I've got no idea. I certainly was like that. If you want to see that next episode, click here for the next video on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, go to the next episode in the podcast and I'll help you figure out exactly where you want to go. And last but not least, if you like this video, please click the like button so that YouTube knows to show it to more people, so we can help more people like you figure this shit out without having to pay for expensive coaches and therapists. And if you're listening to this on the podcast and you enjoy it, I'd really appreciate it if you took 2 minutes to leave a review on whatever platform you listen on. That helps to spread the word and get it out in front of more people, which helps me out. Thank you as always for tuning in. I really appreciate you taking the time. I will see you on the next episode. Take care of yourself.